So, if you've ever felt that heavy, kind of complicated mix of absolute relief and creeping guilt right after texting a friend to say you just can't make it out tonight, well, you are in exactly the right place. In this explainer, we're going to explore the hidden psychology behind why we actually cancel plans, and we're decoding the fascinating science of what I like to call the silent recharge.
Let's start with a scenario that, honestly, I think pretty much all of us know way too well. Have you ever enthusiastically agreed to weekend plans on a Tuesday? Like you're genuinely excited about them. But then, by the time Friday night actually rolls around, you're just suddenly hit with this overwhelming wave of dread. You look at your phone, you look at your nice, comfortable room, and you feel this intense, almost magnetic pull to just cancel everything and stay exactly where you are. It's a completely universal feeling. But why? Why does all that enthusiasm just evaporate so quickly?
Okay, let's dive into this. Because what usually happens next is a massive spiral of guilt. You know, society loves to throw around some pretty heavy, judgmental labels when we decide to stay home. People might call us flaky, lazy, or maybe even antisocial. And yeah, some friends might even take your absence a bit personally. But the clinical reality? It tells a completely different story. What you're actually experiencing is a desperate need for mental recovery prompted by a very real biological signal. The truth is, psychology tells us it's just not as simple as being lazy. To really wrap our heads around this, we actually have to look at how our bodies are wired. According to research, some people naturally possess what's called high social sensitivity. Simply put, this means having a highly tuned, more sensitive nervous system. For folks with this trait, everyday social situations literally drain their energy way faster than they do for others. And I want to be super clear here, even if you absolutely love your friends, your brain simply burns more energy during social contact. Your engine is just revving higher and burning fuel faster just to process the environment around you.
And that actually brings us to a core biological truth. Your system is literally signaling for recovery. I want to reassure you right now, canceling plans is not about disliking people. Not at all. It is a vital biological necessity. When your highly active nervous system has completely burned through its energy reserves, it basically throws a massive warning light on your mental dashboard. So that sudden, overwhelming desire to stay in your room on a Friday night, that's just your body's built-in mechanism hitting the brakes so you can finally recharge. So the crucial point is how we manage what psychologists call our cognitive bandwidth. Think of your brain a bit like a smartphone, right? It only has so much battery life or processing power available on any given day. Gifted and highly self-aware individuals often reach this critical tipping point where constant external noise and social activity become incredibly mentally expensive. Things like navigating a crowded restaurant, reading body language, or just keeping up with demanding conversations, all of that consumes a massive chunk of this limited cognitive bandwidth.
So building on that idea of bandwidth, when you send that cancellation text, you aren't retreating. You're not escaping from the world. What you're actually doing is reallocating your mental energy. It is a highly deliberate, totally strategic choice. You're taking the energy that would have been completely zapped in a crowded room, and you're purposefully redirecting it toward peace, focus, and quiet. It's literally an act of mental self-preservation. But all of this naturally leads us to a pretty fascinating question. Why do you naturally recharge in silence? Why doesn't a fun night out with friends leave you feeling pumped up and refreshed the way it seems to for highly extroverted people? Why is the quiet of your own room the ultimate battery charger for your specific brain? Well, the data on how highly intelligent and sensitive people process their environment gives us some brilliant answers. Studies actually point out a few really fascinating things. Highly intelligent people are often way less satisfied with constant socializing, mostly because their brains desperately crave space for ideas and deep thought. For you, going out often acts as a disruption. It interrupts your natural thought flow. You simply find your inner world way more stimulating than everyday small talk. And look, finding socializing less satisfying than solitude doesn't mean you're weird. It actually just means your brain operates on a remarkably complex level. Which brings us to a seriously empowering psychological concept, the power of low social dependency. Think about it. A lot of people force themselves to go out even when they're totally exhausted because they rely so heavily on external social validation to feel good, or they suffer from major FOMO, the fear of missing out. But if you're someone who can easily just skip a social event without that creeping anxiety, you likely possess this incredible psychological trait. Now, what's really interesting about this is that when you have low social dependency, you do not rely on external validation to know your worth. You easily entertain yourself, you're highly capable of solving problems alone, and most importantly, you find profound comfort within your own mind. Unlike people who force themselves to go out just to find a distraction, you don't actually need a crowded room or some frantically busy schedule to feel whole and complete. And honestly, it's not that you hate socializing entirely. It's really about the kind of socializing you're being offered. People who prefer staying home don't just avoid relationships across the board. Rather, they actively reject surface-level interactions. Draining small talk, fake or performative interactions, those are just exhausting to a sensitive nervous system. What you actually crave is genuine, deep connection. You want authentic conversations. So you aren't avoiding people, you're simply avoiding the superficial.
And this brilliantly illustrates that, ultimately, it all comes down to having a higher standard for connection. If a social plan on a Friday night feels like it's just going to be a bunch of draining small talk, your brain naturally evaluates that. It recognizes the total lack of authenticity, so it logically, and very healthily I might add, chooses the comfort of staying home instead. It is a smart, protective, and intelligent choice.
I want you to just take a moment and really let this truth sink in. You aren't broken. You aren't antisocial. You just have a higher standard for connection, an incredibly rich inner world, and a mind that quite literally requires deep rest. That is our core takeaway today. The next time you find yourself typing out that "I can't make it tonight" text, please ditch the guilt. You are simply honoring your own biological needs. Exploring the hidden psychology behind our everyday behaviors doesn't just give us fun facts to share. It really helps us truly understand ourselves and each other. It takes all the shame away from the things we do just to survive and thrive. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought. If the simple act of staying home is actually a complex, brilliant biological maneuver to protect your mind, what other so-called flaws might actually be your brain's hidden superpowers? What human behavior are we going to decode next? Thank you so much for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.